This is Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given is not intended to replace that of your business advisor. Now, let's get down to talking about your business, your success. This is Business Talk.
Well, good afternoon. This is Pete McDowell with Angie Haynes, and we're here to talk about your business today.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Happy Saturday, Ohio. And we like to start the show with a little bit of good news. So good news is if you're a saver, interest rates are creeping up.
That is good news.
Yeah, so inflation might be creeping up too, but we don't want to talk about the bad news, right? We're only talking about good news here. So if you're saving money, you got money in a CD or something like that, well, it looks like Treasury bonds are creeping up there. They've added about 1%, well, about 0.75% in the last 6 months. And it may continue, but it could mean good things for certain people if you're saving and investing. And the stock market also has been doing well. What else is going on, Angie, as far as our world? We are business coaches, in case you didn't know, and we work with business owners, employees, managers within the business, individuals, salespeople, to help them get better results. We also do executive coaching with large companies, so we help individual managers and leaders take on usually more responsibility and get more done with a little less effort. And we've been doing this for up to 13 years. So we enjoy talking about business all the time. And one of the things we're going to do today is talk about a topic called emotional intelligence.
Yes, and emotional intelligence is very exciting to talk about. And we're going to tell people a little bit about what it is and why it matters. We're going to talk about the core emotional intelligence skills, and a lot of times you'll hear us refer to this as EQ. We're going to talk about what each skill looks like in action and the connection between EQ and important outcomes. And we're also going to give some tips on how to increase your EQ.
Right. And those of you that are sitting there listening, if you're driving a car, don't write any of this down. But if you're at home, you can write some of these things down. The book is called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's by Travis Bradberry. That's Bradberry. And it's Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And he's got inside the book, when you buy this book, you can get a quiz. So you can take yourself. Now, of course, you're assessing yourself. So some of us have a little bit of a bias, right? I've heard about that stuff, right?
Yes.
And but you can get an idea of the four quadrants that we'll discuss in a few minutes of where you might have an opportunity for improvement. And it may be all four, it may be one or two, but you can get an idea from reading the book and taking the quiz where you might be able to improve. And there are really three big things that all of us have as part of our makeup, and one is emotional intelligence. Another one is your IQ, your intelligence quotient. That one you're not going to change very much. Now, you can read and you can go to school and you can improve the things you know, but your basic intelligence is not going to change much. The other thing is your behavior profile, and we use something called DISC. There are things like Myers-Briggs and other behavior tests that will determine how you react to different situations. That's not going to change much during your life either. But the emotional intelligence is something you can dramatically improve if you study it.
Right. And the book is really, what's great about the book is after you take your test, it will print out different strategies that you can follow. And they're also in the book, but the test will give you the strategies specific to your score that you can follow and give you tips on how to stay accountable to those.
Great. So if you're just tuning in, it's Angie Haynes and Pete McDowell, and it's Business Talk, and we're talking about your business and your success. And another couple of good news items. We've got a note here, and of course it starts out with bad news in this article, but it's really good news. It's a company called SpaceX, which is based out in California, Elon Musk's company. And we're looking at a chart here of the projections in revenue. By 2025, they're going to be at $35 billion in revenue. And that sounds like a lot. They're at about 2 right now.
Wow.
And the number of launches obviously are going way up, but people are very interested in what this company is doing. And, a few years ago when NASA its mission was changed to get them out of manned space flight and those kind of things, it sounded bad. And I was always excited about space launches. And even as a kid, I was interested in it. But private companies are taking off in this stuff, and it's something that the United States is a leader in. We're really good at it. The other thing that was kind of a related article is there are companies that are now working on space-based flight tracking. So a few years ago, we had a plane that got lost over the Indian Ocean, disappeared, basically. And they found chunks of it 2 years later and had no idea where it went. Well, they're working on these satellites that will allow planes to be tracked all the time, wherever they are. And of course, it's U.S. companies that are doing these things. So we've got a lot of cool things going on. And it's good news. This is Business Talk with Angie Haynes and Pete McDowell. So, Angie, let's start with this emotional intelligence idea.
Okay, well, emotional intelligence, like we said, it's about how you react to your emotions. So relationships are so critical in your work and critical to your success. And so developing your emotional intelligence, the more that you can develop it, the more successful that you will be. In fact, there's a link between EQ on your job, bottom line performance, to how much money you're going to make and how successful that you're going to be. So
and one of the things we talk to our business owners about is that whatever business they're in, now we work with attorneys, we work with manufacturing companies, we work with service companies, distribution companies. There's always a competitor, right? There's always another company that does something very similar or identical to what you do. And how you set yourself apart is what's going to determine the success of your business, the growth pattern, the amount of profit that you can make. And one of the things that we can help ourselves and our employees with is how well we get along with each other within our team and how well we interact with our customers and our suppliers. All those relationships are key to having a great functioning team.
right.
And if you get really good at that, you're going to earn more and you're going to get more done with less effort.
Absolutely.
So that's why this emotional intelligence thing, one of the reasons is why it's so important, is that if you get really skilled at this, it's going to help you and your team to get things done even easier.
Right.
So one of the things that, and if you go to one of our workshops and we present this stuff to you face to face, and if those of you that are home, you can draw a brain, right? Picture your skull, draw a brain, and what happens is this is a very primitive thing that's going on in your brain. When you sense danger, what usually happens?
You either run or you fight it.
Yeah, so fight or flight. Your pulse may quicken. You may get red in the face. You may start to get really aware of your surroundings, right? You're really alert. And that's a very primitive part of your brain that's taking over. And what emotional intelligence allows you to do is when you start to trigger a response that's something where it's fight or flight, we want you to be making decisions on a rational basis rather than an emotional basis. That's really one of the keys of this book, is that if you can make decisions on a more logical and rational basis, you tend to make better decisions. And to be able to recognize when you're starting to get irritated, when you're starting to get impatient, you're starting to get angry or scared even, you can calm that down a little bit and move on to the more rational part of your brain. So your first response is this flight or flight thing. When you recognize it, how do I change that into what should I do about this situation from a logical way? And that's one of the reasons to get really learn a little more about emotional intelligence. This process will help you with making decisions. It'll help you with managing time. It'll help you with communication with others, your social skills, your ability to work with customers. There's a lot of different ways that emotional intelligence can help you. And as we mentioned, you've all got an intelligence quotient, IQ. Your basic behavior profile is set pretty well. But this EQ is one of the things that you can actively improve as an adult.
Right. And there are 4 skills that the book talks about and that we teach to our customers when we're coaching our clients. And it's all about your personal competence and your social competence. And your first skill is self-awareness. And your self-awareness is your ability to accurately perceive your own emotions in the moment and understand reacting to each situation. So you really have to be self-aware before you can work on any of the other pieces, because it all begins with yourself.
So an example, and I'll use myself because it's funny, is and it's kinder, right? But a long time ago, Peg and I were in an office with a bunch of other folks in similar businesses, and we'd have a meeting every Monday morning, and we had it at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. It was always an hour, even if we had 10 minutes worth of stuff to talk about. But that's a little preview. And sometimes I would come into the meeting. I had a lot of stuff to do in my mind. I'm like, I don't have time for this. And it would show during the meeting. And sometimes after I'd get irritated and they were talking about the shape of the glasses for the kitchen and something like that for 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. I'd close my book and I'd leave. And it was not good for relationships. So I started coming to the meeting with my notebook and thinking about each client that was coming up during the week and what each client was struggling with and how I might be able to help them. So if they want to talk about the water glasses for a while, I had something else to occupy myself and didn't show disrespect to my coworkers.
Right.
And it's an emotional intelligence thing to recognize that if somebody's getting irritated with me because I'm being rude, how can I turn that into something positive and be there when I need to be there and participate when I'm needed, when my skills, ability, whatever knowledge is needed, but not get irritated if we go on a subject that I'm not interested in, which happens sometimes.
Right.
Right? So it's an emotional intelligence thing to be able to recognize when those situations are happening and to stay ahead of it.
Exactly.
So again, this is Angie Haynes and Pete McDowell with Business Talk. We're talking about your business, your success. When we come back, we're going to talk more about emotional intelligence. And the book, again, is Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and the author is Travis Bradbury. It's a great book, and there's a quiz in there that you can take to determine your emotional intelligence in the 4 quadrants that we'll cover.
Could your business use some help? Call 614-306-7922 to schedule your coaching session. 614-306-7922. Now, here's more Business Talk.
All right, Ohio, this is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes, and we're talking about emotional intelligence today. This is not just for your business, it's for your everyday life. Everything that's going on around you, you're interacting with people all day long. And if you're a business owner or you're a manager in a business or an employee or a salesperson, these skills are really critical. And if you get good at them, which you can dramatically improve your emotional intelligence and build relationships with other people faster.
Exactly. And we were just talking about self-awareness, and
Right.
that is really where it starts. You have to be aware of your own emotions and how you react to different situations. And you were talking about your situation for your hour-long meeting, and one of the tips that the book will talk about is knowing what your trigger points are. So, it would be interesting to know what your trigger points were, and then you learn that's how you learn self-awareness. So
Right.
if you're in a meeting where you think somebody's wasting your time.
Yeah, you start getting impatient. If you can recognize when you're getting impatient before it starts to show to others, then we get into the self-management side where you can minimize the effects of your impatience and hopefully even turn it into a positive, but at the very least, not let it affect the people that are around you.
Right.
And it's not that you're burying these things, it's learning how to recognize the signals and work on something positive so that you have a good outcome. What we really want from these relationships are great outcomes. We want to have a good relationship with a potential prospect or potential customer of ours. What we want is an engagement from them. We want them to take action. If I can build a relationship with them, we're going to get that action a lot faster.
Yes.
So in the self-awareness category, it's about how can I recognize when I'm starting to get upset, angry, sad, all the different emotions, impatient, all the things. And how can I work on those? So an example here of some self-awareness strategies are observing the ripple effect of your emotions. So recognizing that, boy, when I start getting impatient, I start to, maybe I cut somebody off in the middle of a sentence or something like that. Feel your emotions physically. So recognize when your heart starts to race. If you can race, you can recognize that. You'll be able to pick it up quicker. Check yourself. Just stop. Stop it. And ask for feedback. That's another one that's helped me sometimes is somebody else that I trust in the room after the meeting go, hey, did I get, upset? Did I appear to be upset when we were talking about this subject? Well, yeah, you did. Okay, good. I just want to know because I saw it and I felt it, but I want to see if I really did.
Right.
So those are some of the things. And the book is really good. The first 40 pages or so cover the concept. And then the next 4 sections all have specific strategies. And we're talking now about self-awareness. So you can pick something that makes sense for you. Like self-awareness, for example, has 15 different strategies. You don't have to do them all. Just look at one.
Right.
They have a little paragraph on each one. You can read it and try to implement it. And it's relatively simple stuff.
Right.
But it's powerful.
Well, and when you take the test in the back of the book, the test will give you results and specific tips and strategies that you should follow in the book.
So we've got the self-awareness thing. So you're aware when your emotions are starting to take over. So the next step would be
the self-management, which is how you react to those emotions.
what do you do about it once you're aware that, hey, I'm starting to get mad or I'm starting to get angry? What do I do?
Right. So you really have to have your self-awareness developed because your self-management is dependent on that. And it's the ability, once you can use your awareness of your emotions, and you can stay flexible and have positive behavior so you can make the best out of the situation like
Great.
you did bringing your notes
Okay.
at your meeting.
Yeah, and in the book itself, there are 17 self-management strategies. One of them is breathe right. So just take a breath. These are pretty simple things. Smile and laugh more. That usually helps, right?
Right.
Sleep on it. In other words, don't say anything and let it go until the next day. Count to 10, right? One of our clients, and it isn't in this list, she takes a drink of water. If she's in a meeting, she's in a semi-hostile work environment at times. Like in a meeting, people will say really abrasive things to other people. She'll take a drink of water before she makes a comment.
Give her
And
a
it just
second to
gives
think
you a little
about
bit of
it
time.
and-
Yep. Focus on your freedoms rather than your limitations. What could I do about this versus, oh my gosh, I have to do that, kind of thing. So we started with self-awareness, being aware of your emotions and your feelings. And then the next thing was self-management. What do I do about it? How do I control that? And again, this is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes with Business Talk. And we're talking about your business, your success. And today's topic is about emotional intelligence.
Right.
Okay, so we've got self-awareness, self-management. Those two things are about how you work with yourself, right? We all have that struggle going on within. The next two, and these are social competencies, and it's about, the first one is
The social awareness. And the social awareness is the ability to pick up on emotions of other people and understand what is going on with them. So it's about reading other people so that you're socially aware of their emotions and how you can react to them. Once you have your own self-awareness and you can manage your emotions, it's helpful to start reading other people so you can be positive and react in a positive way.
Yeah, so if you're a business owner and have an employee and you're talking to them about a performance issue, if you can pick up on the cues that they're starting to get upset, they're starting to get defensive, their arms are crossing, they're leaning back in the chair, or their face is getting red, if you can pick up on that ahead of time, you can adjust your approach a little bit to help them stay in the conversation. If they become emotional, your ability to communicate is going to go down.
Right. Right. So the more aware you are of their emotions, you can keep that conversation going so that you can help bring their emotions down maybe, or at least continue to communicate with them.
Right. And sometimes even with performance discussions or behavior changes, if you recognize that the other person's getting very upset at this point, take a break.
Right.
Say, hey, let's do this again tomorrow, or let's talk this afternoon instead of finishing up today, and we'll revisit it. We'll keep working at it. And when we go look at some of the strategies for social awareness that are in this book, it's body language, right? That's number one. Very simple thing. Practice the art of listening. So listening better, taking time to really think about what the other person said. And we do this sometimes with folks, is have them repeat what the other person said. Is this what you said? And sometimes it's not what you think they said. Plan ahead for gatherings, for social gatherings. Get prepared mentally when you go into a networking event or a big business meeting. Think about who you really need to sit near, who you need to talk to that day. Living in the moment. So that's something that as parents we all have had chances where, and I think of my daughter Emily, one time when she was about 8 years old, she grabbed my face, put her hands on each side of my face and said, "Listen to me." Because I had just come home from work, and my mind's still in the chemical plant thinking about this and that and all these problems. And Emily's trying to tell me a story, and I was half listening. She grabbed my head and made me look right in her eyes and said, "Listen to me." Anyway, it's a really good reminder to live in the moment, especially if you have kids. Boy, they're going to be growing up really fast.
Right. Well, and the other important thing about living in the moment is you can't dwell on the past.
Right.
And you mentioned the thing about listening, how active listening is really living in that moment and not thinking about what you're going to say next and not thinking about what's the other person going to say and what's their point. You have to live in that moment and actively listen to what they're saying.
So it's almost like slowing down to speed up. You have to slow down a little bit to speed up.
Right.
Okay. Testing for accuracy. So responding to what they say and seeing if what you think they said is what they really meant. Okay, so that's social awareness. So being aware of the emotions and feelings of other people. And if you can do that better, you're going to get better results.
Well, and if you can do that better, that's going to lead you right into relationship management, which is the next
That's
key
the next
point.
thing, right?
Yeah, and it's your ability to be aware of your own emotions and others so that you can manage that successfully and have successful communication and have successful relationships. It's really important in the work environment that you can work well together.
Yeah. So, for example, you've got an employee who is a relatively slow-paced employee. How you give them instructions on a new task or a new project or a new responsibility for them, if you go too fast, you're going to lose them.
Right.
I mean, there's a good chance that you could, if you're a fast-paced person and you whip through, hey, I want you to do this, that, and the other, and it'll be fine. It'll be easy.
Right.
And then you split. And this slow-paced person's thinking after you left, holy cow, how am I ever going to get that done?
Right.
This is too much. And you're setting them up for failure. You could.
You could. And maybe they missed some of the instruction that you just gave to them because they're processing it slower.
So if you can recognize the pace of the other person in accepting this new idea or new concept or new responsibility, you're much more likely to get them bought into, hey, I am capable of doing this, and you're going to be there along the way helping me and make sure that they're going to be comfortable with it. Because if they're not comfortable with it, your results are not going to be as good as you'd like.
Right.
So relationship management. So good.
Yeah, and there are some strategies in there if you want to look those up.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about different strategies to help with relationship management.
So here's some examples, and there, again, are many of these. There's 17 relationship management strategies. And again, the book is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. This is Business Talk with Angie and Pete. And we're talking about Travis Bradbury's Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Some of the relationship management strategies are be open and curious. Now, Peg is really good at this. She asks questions. Keep asking questions until you really understand what's going on. Take feedback well. So look for feedback, and when you get it, don't pop a gasket, right?
Right.
Build trust. So you want people to trust you. Well, do what you say you're going to do. Show up when you said you were going to show up, and anything you can possibly do to reinforce the fact that you are going to be there with them when they need you will build trust. Only get mad on purpose. Who is it? Bill Belichick. You don't see much emotion on him, and when he does say something, it's usually you've got to make a change, right? So he keeps the emotions in check. Don't avoid the inevitable. If you got to have a discussion with somebody, have it, right? Get it done. Explain your decisions. Don't just make them. So we as bosses and business owners and managers, sometimes it's so logical what we're doing, we don't have to explain it to anybody, right? But you just might, because some people might not see the input or the consequences or the reasons for all your decisions. So it's good if you can explain it. Tackle a tough conversation, so do it sooner rather than later. So those are some of the examples of relationship management strategies. And they're good ones. They're just to keep in touch with folks and to make sure that you're on the same page.
Right. Well, and it's really important that you develop your relationship management because it ensures clear communication and it helps you effectively handle your conflict in the workplace. And so it will help communicate better with your employees, like you said, with reviews and things like that, especially are important to have these 4 components.
So this is Business Talk with Angie Haynes and Pete McDowell. And we want to mention to you also that we have on March 3rd, we have our 90-day planning session. If any of you in the audience would like to attend with one of your employees or your partner, we've got 2 spots that are available at 614-306-7922. Give us a call, and we'll have you come to the session. There'll be about 50 other business owners and employees of businesses working on developing a plan for the next quarter. You'll have that plan when you walk out of the room. It'll be one that you developed, and you'll learn some things from the other folks in the room.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more Business Talk.
All right, this is Pete and Angie, and we're talking about your business, your success. We've got to mention again that on March 3rd, we have a 90-day planning session, and we do have 2 seats available. If you'd like to come as our guest and come out of that room with a 90-day plan that you created, and you'll have some learning topics as well. So we'll learn from everybody in the room, and we'll also present on a specific topic of learning. We do that every 3 months. Okay, so let's go back to this emotional intelligence. And again, we're reciting some things from a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0 from Travis Bradbury. Very good book. It's a quick read. It's probably the first 40 pages are about the concept. How does it apply? Why do I care about this? Which you should care about because it's a very common thing for high-performing people, whatever walk of life they're in. If they're very highly emotional intelligent, they're more successful. It's almost universal. And we've talked a lot about the different quadrants. So the first one was self-awareness. So that's something that's personal competence. It's something that if you're good at picking up on the emotions and feelings of other people or of yourself, your own emotions and feelings, you're self-aware.
Right. So let's say maybe this is a person who manages your emotions. You're always even when you face bad news, you can quickly move on and try to find solutions. You can stay calm in good or in bad situations. It's especially important during work meetings or when you're with clients. As the emotions go up, you can just stay even and remain calm and move on.
So you've led right into the second category, which is self-management. So you recognize that, hey, this is some bad news that I just got. I got this huge project and I have 2 days to do it in. Staying calm and figuring out, well, exactly what could I do about this? Is there anything I can do about this? If not, I'm going to just take this on, and I'm going to make sure that I recognize the ripple effect to the rest of my projects, communicate that to my coworkers, my boss, and get after it and just go do it. So you're managing your own emotions well so that you have a good result.
Exactly. And you're separating your emotions from the logic of the situation,
Okay.
which
Great.
allows you to move on.
Great. And sometimes it's helpful to talk to another person about it, about, hey, here's what I was feeling when that happened. Am I crazy or does it make sense? And how can we get this thing done? Okay, so that's self-awareness. Now, self-management, you've led into that a little bit too. Anything else you want to add on that, on the self-management side?
No, I mean, once you are aware of your own emotions and you can manage them, you start to look at social awareness, and that's just your ability to pick up on other people's emotions. And, this is the person who reads emotions of others very well, and they're usually in good relationships with other people because they can read their own emotions, they can handle their own emotions, and then they can read other people's emotions, which then leads them into good relationships and relationship management.
So in other words, if I can pick up on when the person across from me is getting impatient, they're starting to look at their watch, or maybe they're folding their arms, or they're leaning back in their chair, and I'm starting to lose them, right?
Right.
If it's one of my kids, or if it's a business prospect or a business partner, and they're starting to not listen to me, if I can pick up on that early, I can adjust what I'm doing.
Right.
The speed, or maybe the tone, or maybe the topic. I need to change topics and move on to something else. And
Right.
come back to that later. If you can pick up on that early, that's a good social awareness skill.
Right. It'll keep you from losing them.
Right. We don't want to lose them. So the relationship management side is about, once I recognize that, hey, Angie started to get impatient with me, I need to figure out, well, how do I manage that?
Right.
Not that she's ever done that.
Well, exactly. I would never do that.
Of course not.
It's just,
We'll talk about this later.
yeah, it's just good for communication, and it helps you effectively handle conflict.
Okay, great. And it's not always about conflict. It's about giving people news in the way that they need to hear it. Some people like news just blurted out, and some people like it given to them a little bit at a time and slowly.
Right.
I've got 3 kids, and they're not all the same, and some of them, it's fine to just dump it out there, and another one is you got to do it a little slower, and that's
More
okay.
detail.
Either way is okay.
That's right.
So good. So that's our fourth one: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Those are the 4. And again, this is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes, Business Talk. So we're going to talk now about an article that we have here about the unmistakable habits of unlikable people. And again, this is an emotional intelligence skill. And Travis Bradbury is one of the authors of this article. So let's start at the top here, Angie. Which one would you like to start with?
Well, we could start with one of them that I think is the funniest is the name dropping.
Oh,
it's actually
there
right
we
at
go.
the very top.
We've all been to a party with somebody like
we
that.
have.
Hey, I met blah, blah, blah.
Right. So it's one that I think everybody can relate to. It's great when you know important.
These are things to avoid, by the way,
Yes,
right? We don't
these
want to lead you to these things.
These are the 10 unmistakable habits of unlikely people. There may be more than 10, but it's unlikable habits. So name dropping was the one that sort of, it's a terrible habit and everybody can relate to it. Everybody has that friend, right? Or that person at a party.
Right.
And it just cheapens what you're saying.
Right. There's no real point to it
Yeah.
other than draw attention to yourself in a way that really doesn't Doesn't help your stature at all. So.
Right.
And it's a habit of an unlikable person.
Yeah,
So,
so don't do
we're
it.
going to avoid that, right? Yeah, this is a pitfall.
Right. The other one that I'm sure we have all come in contact with is emotional hijackings.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Mm-hmm. So that is somebody who is just highly emotional and turns a lot of the attention to themselves. And
So their problem becomes my problem, maybe?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So,
But only if you decide to accept the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe this is the person that explodes all the time at work.
Right? Anybody have one of those?
Oh, yeah. It's the people who cry a lot. These are just some signs of emotional hijacking. It's the highly emotional person at work who their emotions maybe usually aren't justified to the situation.
Okay.
And so the point of the meeting gets diverted to them because they're so emotional, and it just shuts it all down.
Okay. So we want to avoid
Mm-hmm.
overly expressing your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if it's not moving the project forward or the decision forward, it's not helping anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you could get other people upset, right? We have
You
a whole
could.
room full of crying people, then we're not going to get much done.
Right.
Unless it's a funeral,
Right.
and then it's okay.
Yeah, I've come across a lot of people like this in my career over the years, and it's frustrating because you don't get a lot done.
Okay.
You know.
And how could you react when that happens, when it starts to happen? What could you do?
Well, hopefully you can calm them down. You can say, let's take a break, come back to that later. Those would be some things that you could
Okay.
do.
And sometimes, there's another book that we recommend sometimes. It's called Law of Attraction by Michael Lozier. He recommends helping them to become more positive or to divert them a little bit by, well, what you're focusing on something you really don't like or don't want. What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
To ask them. Well, I hear you. You don't like this. You don't like that. Well, what do you want? And get them to think about, well, what do I really want out of this situation? And sometimes they realize that, well, it's really not something I can control. The economy's terrible. Well, okay, that's fine. What are you going to do about that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's do something. Let's work on something we can work on
Right.
together. And sometimes that helps them to break out of that cycle.
Right.
Okay.
So the next one is humble bragging.
Humble bragging. Holy cow.
You know what this one is, right?
I don't know. I'm not
It's
Amish. I love the Amish, but
well, no, it might
they're
be
humble. And they generally don't like to bring attention to themselves.
No, here's a good example.
Okay.
It's maybe the guy at work who is the most athletic person, and maybe he'll say, "Man, I need to lose a few pounds," because what he really wants
And
you
he's
to
thin
say,
as a rail. Oh,
Right.
you look great, man.
Right. So,
Humble bragging.
mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. So I think we've all come across people like that, or people who say, "Oh, I'm really not that smart," and they're a straight A student.
Right.
You know.
Nuclear physicist or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I don't understand how these things work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so humble bragging, we want to avoid that one. We're
Yeah.
going through these tips of things to avoid to be more likable,
Exactly.
which if we're building relationships, we do need to be likable.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to build a relationship.
Right. Now, this one, some people in the audience might cringe at. It's whipping out your phone during a meeting or during
wow.
mid-conversation with somebody.
Oh, in the conversation, that's
Mhm.
really, yeah.
I
Now
think
this
we're
happens.
all guilty of
Yeah.
that.
Now I've taken pictures of people, like we're sitting at a restaurant, there's 4 of us, there's 3 people on the phone. So you take a picture of all the other people and then send it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you commit to having a conversation with somebody, you should not take your phone out, even if it's just to check a text message or it beeps and you know there's an email coming in. Now,
But I'm
maybe
looking
you...
for something from somebody I like even more than you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, there might be a case where you sit down with somebody and say, "Oh, I'm going to get an email probably in 15 minutes. I'm going to have to check my phone."
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
different.
Yeah, but you've given the other person a heads up ahead of time. So you've really asked them permission
Right.
to say, hey, is it okay if I check my phone in a couple
Right.
minutes? So
Yeah.
it's courtesy,
It
right?
is.
And not being rude.
Right.
This is Business Talk with Angie and Pete. And we want to mention to you again that we do have a couple of spots at our 90-day planning session on March 3rd. It's in Grandview at one of our clients, MA Architects, best architect in the state. And we're going to help you by having 2 seats available. If you want to go to that, give us a call at 614-306-7922.
Could your business use some help? Call 614-306-7922 to schedule your coaching session. 614-306-7922.
This is
Now,
Pete.
here's more business talk.
This is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes, and we're talking about your business, your success. And we've been talking about emotional intelligence, a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, oddly enough, by Travis Bradberry. And it's a great book, and it has a quiz in there that you can take and get your own score for how well you do on these 4 quadrants. 1 is self-awareness. 2 is once you're aware, how do you manage that? 3 is social awareness. So how are the emotions and feelings of other people perceived by you, and do you pick up on those when they happen? And then how do you manage relationships based on that information? So we've gone through some tips there, and we've been talking again about an article about, and it's related to emotional intelligence. It's some habits of annoying people,
Right.
and that we would like you to avoid. So
Right.
what is the next one on this list, Angie?
The next one is having a closed mind. People just...
What?
Exactly. You're more likable if you have an open mind, because everybody likes to give, tell you what they know, give opinions. And it's
Right.
nice if you open yourself up to other people's conversations or other
You don't
people's
necessarily
opinions.
have to agree with
Right.
everything, but
You
at
don't.
least listen to it. Right.
Right. Right. No one wants to have a conversation with someone if you've already formed an opinion. It
Well, there's no point in having a conversation,
Exactly.
right? If it's
Right.
concrete.
right.
Yep.
So it's good to stay open-minded. And again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it's just a more active conversation, and people enjoy it better.
Right. And my old experience being in a factory for years is I created a habit of having my planner with me all the time. When somebody in the plant, and there were a couple hundred people in this one plant that I worked in for years, and somebody always had something they wanted changed or made different or improved or whatever, and I made sure I wrote it down. And this took a couple of beatings before I decided I better write the stuff down. The name, the date, what was it? Mm-hmm. And then even if I got back to the person and said, look, we're not changing that because it's going to cost $100,000 and we're going to spend that $100,000 on something else, at least I let them know that we considered it, we're not doing it, and this is why we're not doing it.
Right.
And we didn't always agree, but it helped the relationship building because at least I let them know that it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And or if they had a great idea, but we're going to do it a little different way. Hey, we're using your idea. We built on it. We changed it. We're actually going to implement it, but we're doing it a little bit differently. But at least you got some input from somebody. They got a response back.
Exactly.
And respect them enough to give them a response back.
Exactly. Yes. So, in the next one, it sort of leads to the next one, is not asking enough questions.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
When you're having a conversation with somebody, you want to be asked questions so that you know that person's engaged with you, you know that they're interested in what you have to
Yes.
say, and you know that what you're saying to them is important and interesting. So if you don't...
asking lots of questions is a really good, it's a habit that you can get into, right? If you're naturally curious, you're going to learn more. If you have an employee or your boss, for that matter, the more questions you ask about the other person's line of thinking, the more you're going to learn about how they think about the situation that you're talking about.
Exactly.
And it may help you.
Right.
And it's also going to help them feel better about your knowledge of the situation.
Yeah, and it ties into your social awareness and your relationship management, which are 2 of those components that we talked about when we were talking about the 4 emotional intelligence skills. You have to be an active listener, and part of that is asking more questions.
So, like, why did you come to that conclusion? Or what was it that prompted you to go that direction instead of the other direction?
Right.
Or how did you learn about this? Or whatever the next logical question might
Would be.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah, so the next one is being too serious, because everybody likes to have a little bit of fun, and so if your conversation is just too serious, then it sort of makes you look, I don't know, not fun, not passionate about the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that one. That's a great one. And again, my background is in managing chemical plants. We don't have to act like engineers all the time, right? If we do, we're going to bore ourselves and all our employees.
Yeah. Well, you can be the nicest person at work, but if you're always serious, nobody's going to think you're friendly.
Yeah.
You have to joke a little and have a little bit of
So
fun.
they're a
while
little
you're
less
there.
likely to walk into your office and ask you for something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So being too serious, that's something to avoid.
Yeah.
So the opposite of that would be happy, a little more happy,
Uh-huh.
or a little more
Friendly,
outgoing occasionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if it's uncomfortable.
Right.
This is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes with Business Talk, and we're talking about emotional intelligence. And we've got some tips here on things to avoid if you want to be more emotionally intelligent and to build better relationships. So what we have next?
Oh, this is
This
a
is
big
a
one.
great one.
This is a great one. You have to stop gossiping at work or anywhere in life in general. You know, you look terrible when you get carried away and caught up in all the gossiping. And it's an unfortunate part of anytime you have groups of people together, but you really have to make it a point to stay away from that.
So strategies that you can implement, and again, it being in workplaces, we work with a lot of different types of companies, and all of us have had corporate experience. We've worked in a large organization where we've seen some of the things going on. And one way to stop it is just say, hey, I'm not going to talk about that.
Right. Just leave
Hey,
the
did you hear that
conversation.
so-and-so in purchasing was doing this, blah, blah, blah? Hey, I don't talk about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not interested. See ya.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just, I'm not going there.
Right.
You can go there if you want, but I'm not going with you.
Right. Where I worked before I joined Action Coach, there was a lot of gossiping that went on, and you just have to leave the conversation. You just have to, I'll talk to you guys later.
Yep.
You know.
Or the chief gossiper in chief comes into your office, we'll stand up and meet him at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's up?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So gossiping, we're avoiding that. What's the next one?
Ooh, sharing too much too early. So I think that when you're getting to know somebody, it does require a certain amount of sharing. But if you share too much too early, that can have a really negative effect. It could make the other person uncomfortable.
Okay.
It could make you seem self-absorbed and only what's going on with you matters, and you don't really care about their lives because you're too busy sharing about your own. So sharing too much too early is a big thing that you want to avoid.
So this is common sense stuff, right? I mean,
It
this
is.
is kind of, I just met you, and then I'm telling you about,
You'd be
boy, my
surprised.
dad was blah, 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 or boy, my dog bit my kid across the street, and blah. If you're not going to want to talk to me again.
Right, because that's just awkward and uncomfortable, and it's too much too soon, but you'd be surprised how much that happens.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. So you can observe it in others, but we want you to avoid it yourself.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
and share increasing levels as you get to know someone.
Yeah.
And when it's appropriate. Right.
Right.
If it's something that might help the other person, great,
Yeah. Well, and when you're sharing too much too early, you're monopolizing the conversation, and you're probably not letting the other person talk anyway. So that's not going to be good for building a relationship.
So that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got?
Well, I think that the next one, big one.
There we go.
Sharing too much on social media. This is just something we should
That's
all
a problem?
avoid none of us should do this.
Really?
It's a problem for so many reasons. But when you do that, it sort of goes back to the sharing too much too soon. It's important to share things on social media, but it's also more important to understand what you're sharing. It needs to, and when it's done. You shouldn't be doing it at work. You should be doing it on your own time.
Okay.
And nobody really cares how many times you walked your dog today, or what you ate for breakfast. Sometimes I don't use social media often,
Right.
but the things that some people will share is surprising, like,
What you had for breakfast today.
yeah,
right?
I don't care what you're having for lunch, or one of my pet peeves is people like to share how long they worked out, or how many calories they burned, or how long they ran, and it's stuff like that nobody really cares.
Okay. All right. We got it. Very good.
Yeah.
So again, this is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes. This is Business Talk, and we're talking about emotional intelligence. And just to recap here, the self-awareness, the very first quadrant that we talked about, your ability to pick up on the emotions of yourself when it happens, your own emotions, and to understand in general tendencies how you're going to react in certain situations. That's self-awareness. And the next one would be about self-management, is using the awareness of your own emotions to decide what you're going to do about it. So how you act, how you respond, how other people see you reacting is being able to manage your own self well, if you can do that well. And then social awareness is recognizing understanding the emotions and the perspectives of other people. And if you can do this better with your employees and your customers and your coworkers and your friends, your spouse even, you're going to have a better relationship. You're going to build a better relationship. And then the last one is relationship management, is using the awareness of your emotions and the emotions of others, both things, so 2 inputs there, to manage those relationships a little better. And again, this book has a quiz in the back that you can take, and they give you a score at each of these 4 categories. And you don't have to show it to anybody. You
Right.
take it yourself and not show it to your spouse or your friends or anybody else. But it's something that could give you a guide of where you could improve. And we can all get a little better at it. But all really successful people have high emotional intelligence, almost all of them.
Right. And the book will give you strategies for each area where you need to grow and work on. And you don't have to share your results, but it is good to have somebody that you can talk to about it, who can help you stay on track, hold you accountable
Sure.
for the strategies that you're working on.
Great.
You can grow.
So again, this is Pete McDowell and Angie Haynes with Business Talk. We have a 90-day planning session on March 3rd in Grandview at one of our clients, MA Architects. And in that session, we will help you go through a planning process that gives you a structured way to come out with a plan for the next quarter. And you'll be able to do this with a group of 45 to 55 other business owners and managers and leaders and learn from them and some of the concepts that we teach. We always have an hour of just plain learning,
Right.
and we'll be covering some material during that first hour. And then we'll take you through a structured process where you'll have your 90-day plan. If you're interested in this, give us a call at 614-306-7922. Again, it's 614-306-7922.
Yeah.
And this book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, any of those places. And we highly recommend it. Get it, take the quiz. If your spouse is interested, both of you take it. It's always easier with books like these to do it with another person. If you can get somebody else to read it and take the quiz with you, and you each have your own challenges, right? And if you can go through it together, it's easier. It's just like exercising.
Right. And you actually can take the quiz twice.
Uh-oh.
So you can take it and you can...
I'm not doing it
Well,
again.
you work on everything that the book suggests. You take it again in a few months, 6 months.
After you
and-
stop crying.
Right. And you can see how you've improved.
Okay.
This has been Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed were those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given was not intended to replace that of your business advisor. For more information about the topics discussed today, call 614-306-7922. 614-306-7922. Tune in next week at this time for more Business Talk, your business, your success.